What's up, guys? I'm in the new shop today. It's far from complete, so I won't be doing any shop tours or anything like that, but make a little video for you guys. Just a little experiment. We'll have some fun. We've got the super awesome flow bench here, and then if you guys see the notorious little red flow bench, we're not going to be doing anything with this guy today. We're gonna do it all with this guy and these guys. So I bought little known fact, I have been purchasing Bosch wholesale for quite a while. However, we don't meet the requirements to be one of their online automotive aftermarket retailers. Now a lot of people skirt that by using some, they'll say things like based off of a Bosch core, because they still want to be able to sell a Bosch product but not have to abide by the rules that Bosch puts forth in order to be their aftermarket retailer. However, we have applied to be an automotive aftermarket retailer, online retailer through Bosch, so that we can purchase at wholesale and sell online and meet and do it right, just because I don't believe in kind of thrashing your integrity in any way. And to me, that is, if they have rules set in place and they say if you want to sell our product online, these rules you have to go by, then that's, to me, that's, they're a private business. If you violate that, they should stop doing business with you. That's my opinion. So we can't sell online yet, so we just do in-person sales. However, we actually had Bosch call us the other day, and that's true. They called me and they said that they'd like to revisit our application that they had denied us for about 8 months ago. So, maybe you guys can write them a bunch of emails or something and tell them, hey, we really think that Brad would offer a really great customer experience. Maybe tell them that, our customer service here at Snake Eater is second to none. Our lifetime warranty is second to none. And I think that we'd represent their name well. Anyways, that aside, so what I got here is about 100 Bosch 210s. That is exactly 100 in there. It's still sealed. I'll show you how to tell if it's a genuine Bosch product. And I think because there are a lot of knockoffs out there, but I will tell you what, none of them are good. If anybody knows anything about knockoff 210s and what manufacturers can make a 210, it's this guy. I promise you, I spent so much time and money going through every manufacturer, trying to have people come up with custom ones and do all kinds of different things for us. And nobody has been able to come close yet. It's just, Bosch makes the best stuff. So, we have it here. So it's still taped shut. Let's see. And part of the reason I want to do this little video with you guys is it's pretty common to just buy 8 Bosch fuel injectors, not flow matched. And a lot of people will tell you that you don't have to, they're that good. And the answer is, I don't know. I don't believe that personally. I think you need a flow match if you're going to be putting them in a high performance vehicle. I'll make some more videos talking about why flow match matters so much, and in reality why it doesn't cause the problems that I think people think that it causes. A lot of people out there are like, oh, they were untunable. The flow match was so bad, and it's like, that's probably not the injectors. So yeah, here we go. Got all these guys here. So, first thing I'll show you is they use their own tape to seal these, right? Let's see. You can see right there. And there's an actual slight iridescence to it. You can't see it. It's almost like there's a watermark in the tape. So that's one way to tell. There are some iridescence in the stickers on the label. So once you cut the tape, that's what it comes out looking like. They all have the plastic caps, no matter what part number it is. You'll see the QR code right there, scannable. And then your date code, date of manufacture, right there. Okay, all right, now we'll get to just throwing 8 of these on the old ASNU. And we'll see 8 random ones, and we'll see what they look like on a static flow test, which I think is irrelevant, but whatever, we'll do it. And then we'll do a 3-point dynamic or a 2-point. Let's do a 2-point, just because this video is already at 7 minutes. All right, 3 minutes it took. It's a nice spray pattern. One of the things that you'll see on Bosch is that you cannot use fuel pressure to shut these things off. It's pretty incredible. I mean, they just super strong. So we'll run, about 1,500 injections just to get the fluid kind of get through, warm them up a little bit. We'll do it at 120 PSI just to warm the coil up, get everything sort of copacetic, and then we'll start with a short flow match. The problem with static flowing these things, these large injectors is when you only have 130 ml tube, you get like 2 seconds of static spray on a huge injector like this. So you have, I mean, yeah, you can do the math. You can flow for 2 seconds and multiply to figure out the cc's per minute or the pounds per hour. However, the smaller the measurable interval, the more times you multiply it, the more room for error. Because you kind of you devalue the small numbers after the decimal a little more, so to speak. So let's see if we can't set up a static flow test here. Nice spray pattern, right? Okay. Yeah, see, I mean, when you overflow them like that was a 2-second flow. You overflow, I mean, you lose an unpredictable amount of fluid. So we can try and set in a 1 second flow, but I mean, I think it's kind of a stupid test, but we'll just do it just so we could see. Well, that was a pretty stupid test. You have anywhere from 37 to 40 in there on the static, but I mean, like I said, who cares? But overall, it's not bad. Just looking at it, I'd say it's probably, let me do the math real quick. Let's see, 37. We'll just do percentage of difference between the top and the bottom. It's 3.9%. If you were only counting the top cylinder, the bottom cylinder, averaging, and then finding the variance from the center line, it's 3.9%. So it's not quite percentage difference, it's just a 2-cylinder average. So let's get this thing set up. We'll run a 2-point dynamic test real quick, or what they would consider two-point. You're gonna do is just measure just above the end of the non-linear zone, so around 3.8 milliseconds. And then these injectors, the non-linear zone goes pretty high, so you want to make sure you clear that. And for those of you guys that don't know, the non-linear portion of the injector is where the characteristics are unpredictable, because you're sort of either trying to ask it to move too small, it's not liking it, or too large, you're getting too close to 100% duty cycle, and the signal is basically blending. All right, so we're getting our machine set up here. Let's run a dummy test here and set our pressures. We'll do this at 43. Pretty freaking solid, right? Wow, I'm actually pretty impressed. I mean, I grabbed 8. I've seen larger, kind of laughing because that was pretty damn good. That's a really nice full match for grabbing 8 random ones. You can find the spread to be a little bit wider. To be honest with you, not much though. That's just sort of the way it is. I mean, you're talking about a company that makes everything from medical to aeronautical components. So a basic fuel injector, no, not hard for them to make. So let me enter these values in real quick. Let's see, we'll get us a little variance measurement. So it's 1.4%. And then your largest percentage of difference would only be slightly more than that. So let's set the machine up for a low end. Now the low end is kind of, that's the bane of the large injector, right? Any injector that has a coil capable of overcoming that kind of fuel pressure that you guys saw is a strong coil, but it's probably not going to make the fine movements as well. So we'll see what it does here. It's about to do 520 injections at 5 milliseconds, so accounting for the dead time, which we'll find out what the exact dead time is on these injectors here in a moment, but I'm going to guess it's probably around 1.2, so that's actually going to make the actual opening time about 3.8, maybe 3.9, depending on where it is in there. So. Okay, so like I said, you can kind of expect the bottom end to be a little bit less accurate of a flow match. These larger injectors, I mean, everybody knows the 210, if you're trying to run like 93 or race gas on it and you're trying to idle at 210 on a smaller displacement motor, I would say anything under probably 450 cubic inches is not going to be happy. You're going to have to really start looking into like injector phasing if you have a Holley ECU, and basically your tuner's just going to have to spend a lot of time. So we'll look at our numbers here. Wish I could turn this around, but I can't. So here's our numbers. So we're looking at 1.4% at 75% duty cycle, roughly, depending on, cam, but that's at 15 milliseconds pulse width. And then at 5 milliseconds, and then we're looking at 0.93 for the injector offset. So it's really about 4 millisecond. So it's just clear the nonlinear zone. That's kind of like a low end cruise. Looking at about a 10% dead time spread. So overall, this would be a very, very tunable set of injectors for this. We're gonna go into some user defined settings here. We'll make our own test and we'll see. And basically what we're gonna try to determine now, 20 minutes into it, Jesus Christ, we'll have to trim this up somehow, I don't know how. But what we're gonna do is try to set it for 2 milliseconds. Will give us just above 1 millisecond actual, once we factor in a little bit of offset, actual opening time. And we're gonna see what these look like in the non-linear zone. So this would be your very low duty cycle. This isn't quite as low as idle, so you might start to see a little bit of variance here. You know what, we're just gonna take it down to 5% duty cycle, 1 millisecond, just because this video's getting long. And we'll see what this says. Quick, what you could see here, we just ran pretty much in what would be the equivalent of a high idle test. And the only reason I ran it somewhat high, most of your standalone engine control units are going to consider the minimum pulse width of any injector 1 millisecond. They don't go below that. And any standalone engine control unit isn't going to, maybe don't say any, but any that I know of off the top of my head right now that I can think of don't have short pulse adder information. So they're probably going to be trying to get that injector to run. The lowest they'll probably be able to run the injector is 1 millisecond. And that's just what we ran it at right now. So 1 millisecond is a fair assumption of a smaller displacement V8 motor, like a 293 or a 325. 364, something like that, at idle with this large of an injector. And it might say with that flow variance, it's going to cause you some problems. So the whole purpose of the video was, is it worth it to buy, is it worth it to buy these nice injectors? They're very nice, from a company that is flow matching them for you if their production quality is so great that they almost have a usable variance, from the factory. And so I would say if you're not going to buy from a company that is going to do these very low end testings like this, then you might as well just buy from somebody who's selling them at the wholesale price, the grab bag, non-flow matched. Because if they're just like, for instance, if you saw what we just did, the 2-point dynamic test, that's already more than most people are going to be running. they're going to just press the dynamic test button on the ASNU machine, and you're going to see that the fuel pressure do this, and then they're just going to say, okay, good enough. It's going to go through a ton of different things. It's going to go from like 250 RPM with a super wide pulse width, the cranking simulation, all the way up to, depending on how many they're testing, 2,500 RPMs or something like that. Like the machine cannot test 8 injectors at once to a very high RPM. And you can't, if you're running the cycles, the dynamic test cycle, you can't change the fuel pressure unless you're standing there watching it and you're predicting the movements. You're not going to be able to do it. So if you don't have the additional laptop and software where you run them one at a time and you tell it, like, I need this point on our linearity graph, you know, down low, like a 3 millisecond test, a 5 millisecond test, and then a 15, so that you can assume that's, you know, you can build that straight line approximation because you just picked here and here. Injectors don't do direction changes. They build straight lines on those graphs. Anybody who's got a set of snake eaters has seen those graphs because we give them to you. So you want to test at 3 points along that and just confirm trajectory. Really, you only need 2. You need a kind of an end point and a beginning point, but 3 is better. So circling back to it, if you're not going to buy from a company that has some machinery that can run these very low down like that, then I would say just buy wholesale. Just get from VS Racing, just get the grab bag ones. Because you're gonna roll the dice either way. So if you're buying them from a company that is just putting them on the assay machine and pressing whatever tests, junk. You need to ask them, like, what are your test parameters? How can I ensure that I'm not gonna have a 24% variance at idle? Really, do we care so much about idle matching? Not as much, but if you wanna daily your car or you wanna drive your car at all, yeah, that's gonna give you a hell of a time, especially if it's your car and you're tuning it and you don't have a professional to help you. If you're using like the Holly or something, I would probably reconsider 210s, just personally. I mean, they're really like 1,400 horsepower and up, but even our 1,500 is hard to idle on gasoline. The 210, it gets hard to, that's like right where you're drawing that line where it starts to get hard to idle on E. You got to know what you're doing a little bit. People have done it and they do okay. But you could have a pretty wide variance, and that could come back to bite you. But you also could end up lucky and not. So yeah, I mean, that video got way out of hand. We're at like almost 35 minutes, but you know, I figured why not use what I have to try to help you guys make the best decision for, should I pay a company who just buys Bosch at wholesale and flips them? Or should I pay a company who has the machinery to test them and match them and do a low end match? Because on the high end, you guys saw it's all, they're fantastic. Those are 8 random ones. And I bet you if I just keep pulling from that box, they're gonna be the same thing. So the mid range and the high end, they're all dialed in. It's the fact that these are not intended for liquid fuels. You know, they're CNG injectors. They all are, except for Injector Dynamics. They have the only one that's purpose made. Nobody else can sell that except for, I think, ASNU UK. You know, even those big injectors, man, you guys see the variance. You know, you don't want to be putting up with that. Trying to get your car to idle right and cold start right, hot start right, all that stuff. All right, so I hope that helps you answer the question as to whether or not you should purchase wholesale or from a company who might charge you quite a fair bit of money to do the flow matching for you. All right, guys, have a good one.